I'm just an average American. But I'm an American, and some of the things I see in this country of ours make my blood boil. I see people with foreign money. I see Negroes holding jobs that belong to me and you. Now I ask you, if we allow this thing to go on, what's going to become of us real Americans?
I've heard this kind of talk before, but I never expected to hear it in America.
This fellow seems to know what he's talking about.
What are we real Americans going to do about it? You'll find it right here in this little pamphlet. The truth about Negroes and foreigners. The truth about the Catholic Church.
Do you believe in that kind of talk?
I don't know, makes pretty good sense to me.
And I tell you, friends, we'll never be able to call this country our own until it's a country without. Without what? Yeah, without what? Without Negroes. Without alien foreigners. Without Catholics. Without Freemasons. You know these things.
What's wrong with the Masons? I'm a Mason. Hey, that fellow's talking about me.
And that makes a difference, doesn't it?
These are your enemies. These are the people who are trying to take over our country. Now you know them. You know what they stand for. And it's up to you and me to fight them. Fight them and destroy them before they destroy us. Thank you.
Before he said Masons, you were ready to agree with him.
Well, yes, but he was talking about... What about those other people?
Demanding accountability and defending your rights against the police specifically, and the government generally, are difficult and dangerous tasks. Your right to watch the government and record what you see is a natural right that is protected by the Constitution, and it cannot be taken away by the government.
Alright guys, I'm back with one last Drag Queen Story Hour video from a second weekend of Drag Queen Story Hour here in Spokane, which brought a second weekend of protests along with it, and another opportunity for the city of Spokane and the people who claim to rule over it to flex their oppressive muscles and show how their monopoly on force is ushering in a police state right before the collaborating eyes of the people living here. Before I get into this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with all your friends and family, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you know right away when I've uploaded new content. As usual, all of my sources are listed in the description. I'll just start off and get this part out of the way. The city of Spokane did a much better job this week than last, but they still had an over-the-top show of their monopoly on force to remind us all of who is in charge. It was kind of hard to walk around with all the extra order followers running around, making sure nobody got too comfortable in exercising their natural rights. For the most part, everything went fine for this event. We did have some order followers threaten to kick North Idaho Exposed to the other side of the street again, this time merely because a Story Hour attendee said he should be on the other side with the protesters. Not because he was hurting anyone else, but because someone made the statement that they thought the cops should make him go to the other side of the street. Not very inclusive for a group of people claiming to be inclusive. It's also not a very good way to get people to be understanding of your point of views. To call an order follower to threaten their use of force on others simply to enforce your will when they have done nothing wrong. But hey, that's just my humble opinion. The thing I really want to focus on for this video is the divide these events create. Not because of the individuals at the event, but because of the agendas and propaganda presented to us by corporate media. The first weekend of the event was a first for me. I had never been to any event like this as a awakened adult that had protesters there to protest the activity of other allegedly free people. I kind of just used last weekend to observe and analyze the situation. This weekend, I wanted to find a different angle to my story on the event, and I think I found it. My first observation after attending both events is the people attending the Drag Queen Story Hour were for the most part what appeared to be a close group of people and in a community that gathered to support and encourage each other. Maybe they aren't understood by the rest of society and because of that feel awkward or ostracized. This event is a way for them to share with other kids who might be having the same feelings and experiencing the same situations that they aren't alone and they don't have to feel bad about themselves. That it's okay to be different. Being okay to be different is definitely something I can get behind and support. Anybody who knows me knows I fit that bill very well. And that observation allowed me to empathize with this community or family of people. See, I belong to a community that is also misunderstood like this. I've talked about my son's disability before, and because of his disability, we've been welcomed into a community of families and friends that have loved ones with disabilities across a very broad spectrum. There are adaptive sports programs and activities available for our kids and loved ones to take advantage of, and we get used to saying the same supportive faces at event after event. We share stories and support each other in understanding and finding resources to help our loved ones. It really isn't any different than the LGBTQ community as far as that goes. Next, I imagine there was a wheelchair story hour at the library, where people with disabilities would be reading books and singing songs with kids. I imagine the community of friends and family that support this group being lined up outside the library, just like the attendees of the Drag Queen Story Hour. I think of my friends and their kids being there with my son and I to show their support of him and his struggles, and enjoying each other's company and learning about others as we wait to go inside for the event. Then I imagine looking across the street and seeing a sign being held up stating that my son and others like him are an abomination, or that somehow he is less than human or evil. Seeing a group of people there voicing their views that there is something wrong with what I'm doing. Personally, I've grown accustomed to this, and the stares and awkward questions that come along with having a son that walks with an obvious disability or with his walker at times, and is nonverbal. I do realize my family and friends who aren't with us all the time aren't exposed to that. And I know what feelings having someone think my son's life is so wrong would bring up in me, even after being conditioned to it. I would also guess those are probably very new and uncomfortable feelings for those family and friends close to us, there for a show of support. It occurs to me some of those family and friends might not know how to handle these situations, which could explain some of the strange behavior of non-inclusion I observed from a very few amount of people waiting for Drag Queen Story Hour. They're confused and maybe even a little hurt or angry on behalf of their friends and loved ones, and lash out, not knowing exactly how to handle it. This is my point of doing this story. The separation that is created in the name of safety for these two groups does nothing but make the divide greater. I know there were allegedly threats made, and those were from both sides. I guess the way I see it, we all need to grow up. If you're going to make statements that a whole group of people are evil and or disgusting without knowing anything about them other than what has been presented to you by corporate-backed media, there might be some backlash. Does that mean you should rush to call the enforcement gangs the cities say are there to keep you safe? Just remember, if you do, your rights will be taken as well as everyone else's under the guise of keeping everyone safe. I would encourage everyone to evaluate their own behavior and how credible the actual threat is before inviting the threat of force from the state on everyone in the area. Across the street from the library is where the Spokane Order followers staged people wishing to protest Drag Queen Story Hour. Protesters were on one corner and then across another street and represented two different groups. One group identifying themselves as 500 Moms Strong. I think the first thing to recognize is these people are very confused about behaviors that go against everything they know to be right. I think one thing we can all remember in these type of situations is when you are rocking someone's core beliefs. I mean the things that they hold to be ultimate truths and very near and dear to their hearts. Then you really shake them up and make the core of this person's belief system explode into chaos. I just don't think it's very fair and reasonable to expect another person to just immediately accept something that different to their core beliefs. We all need time and information to process things in order to understand them better. That's not to say time and information will always change a person's mind, but it may bring in some understanding. My final point applies to both sides, but I would say more specifically to the protester side. Remember, what is being presented to us by our corporate media is almost always some sort of propaganda or manipulation to hijack our minds and make them think in a certain and very controlled way. So when we see stories on Fox News or CNN or MSNBC showing a family taking their young child on a tour of drag shows that very closely resemble strip clubs, remember, this isn't the movement. These aren't the people at the Drag Queen Story Hours reading to kids. What you're being presented with is propaganda to make you think that when Drag Queen Story Hour comes to your town, your local library will be converted into a strip club for kids to be defiled at. At least that's what our masters want you to think. Then it's much easier to have this division we have. Then it isn't just a community of people that thinks differently than us. Instead, it's a community of evil people trying to ruin society and the rest of our kids. See how this divide and conquer thing works? The reality is, this community of like-minded people that showed up for Drag Queen Story Hour wasn't trying to hurt anyone else's property, or defraud anyone. They just wanted to be accepted for who they are. Corporate media paints this movement in a different light, making it more sinister and creating a division. Then, when the event comes to your town, instead of a dialogue and a movement towards understanding, we get separation, yelling, and a division among communities of people. Instead of focusing on our rulers in government, who are constantly extorting more and more money from us and suppressing our rights as living beings with these enforcement gangs, if we all focus on understanding each other, the need for the protection our masters provide goes away. So does our reliance on them. Then we can truly be free and have a society consisting of voluntary actions between truly free people. Until then, what we have is highway robber barons stealing our productivity, then using it to procure and provide services and security for us regardless of necessity and willingness to participate. At least a real thief just steals your money or property and leaves you be. These criminals, calling themselves government, do the same thing, yet stick around to convince us they need to keep doing it, and it's for our own good. That sounds a lot like what former slave Frederick Douglas said about the relationship between a slave and its owner. To make a contented slave, you must make a thoughtless one. It is necessary to darken his moral and mental vision, and, as far as possible, to annihilate his power of reason. He must be able to detect no inconsistencies in slavery. The man that takes his earnings must be able to convince him that he has a perfect right to do so. It must not depend on mere force. The slave must know no higher law than his master's will. The whole relationship must not only demonstrate to his mind its necessity, but its absolute rightfulness. And with that, my friends, I'm going to conclude this video. Leave me a comment with your thoughts. Am I way off base here, or do you agree with me? Let's have a civil discussion about it. If you like my work and want to support the channel, check out all the platforms you can find me in the description below. There are also links to PayPal, GoFundMe, Bitcoin, and of course the merchandise store. I truly appreciate all of you guys and love any support you give me. Our masters in corporate media and government are trying very hard to censor voices like mine. It's only through your support we can continue to spread alternative views and the truth. Please help spread the truth and follow everyone like me on all platforms you can and share our content with everyone you know. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit the like button and share it with everyone you know. Find us on Twitter as well as censorship-free platforms like BitChute and Steemit or DTube. Of course, subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to smile at someone you don't know every day.